Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. It's Peyton here, and today we have a very special guest. We have Maximus Overdrive. So how about you explain to the people who aren't familiar with you, what you do?
The best way I could sum up exactly what I do is I am a Angry Birds plush historian. I know the ins and outs of everything associated with Angry Bird plush toys and basically Angry Bird merchandise as a whole, though I particularly specialize in the plush toys by the company Commonwealth Toy Novelty. In fact, it got to the point where I now work for them, which is pretty crazy, selling off all sorts of one-of-a-kind samples, but if you ever need to know anything about Angry Bird merchandise or Angry Bird plushies by Commonwealth, I'm your guy.
All right. So what I have here is I've got some interview questions and then some just for fun questions. And then I've prepared an Angry Birds Jeopardy. um,
Now, this
I
should
will
be
tell
fun.
you more about the Jeopardy once we get to that, but it's a thing. um, so let's get started. First question: Why Angry Birds? Why did you choose Angry Birds? What's special to you about Angry Birds?
So, Angry Birds as a franchise to me was introduced to me by my sister. So, I was probably it was around 2010 or something like that. It was probably after the initial huge influx of players coming in after the game reached like the top of the App Store and all that at that time. But she used to have like some kind of Nokia phone, I think it was, some kind of cheapo phone at the time that she got from like Cricket Mobile or something like that. But she let me play on her phone while we were at like a dinner or something like that, and I was instantly infatuated by the game. And she was telling me about all these characters that they had, the red bird, the blue bird, and oh, they're so cute. And for one day, I forget if it was for my birthday, or if it was Christmas, or it was just random. She gave me a red bird plush that she bought from some local convenience store. I believe it was 7-Eleven or something like that. And the toy, it just it sat on my bed for a couple of months, and eventually I got to the point where I was playing the game and I was interested in the merchandise, and so I just decided to start collecting it all. And the characters, to me, there's something, there's almost something intrinsically special about the way the franchise was set up, the vision of a guy like Peter Vesterbaka, who took the franchise to whole new levels. They had huge ambitions for the franchise, and really they executed things perfectly with all the different characters and the universe they created. And to me, there really is no other universe quite like Angry Birds.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I still have a huge bin of just in my basement, all Angry Bird stuff that I collected back when it was all in stores. Yeah, I didn't actually know the names of the characters until the movie came out actually. So I just called them Yellow Bird, Red Bird, whatever. Yeah.
For sure, that the way I was introduced to the character names was probably through Angry Birds tunes. That's when they really started marketing that. It was around that time. I think they created the names late 2012 or something like that, or at least they gave each one of the characters the names at that time. I don't know how long those names were in the works, but really it was just the whole brand portfolio that they created. There really is no other brand that quite has that appeal that Angry Birds does. It has that certain look. That's why the merchandise in particular really speaks to me because I mean, in my own collection of merchandise that I have, everything is mint. It's either in the box with tags. I, it's just the artwork of the brand is something that I don't really see anywhere else, and it's really to me personally a shame that they've gone away from that original art style of just the classic art style or the pre-chrome, chrome, whatever you prefer. But that's really the art style that appeals to me, and that's really the brand direction that I'd like to see it return to one day, though that isn't likely if, it's probably not going to happen ever.
Yeah, truly a product of its time, I guess. All right. Next question. What is the rarest plush in your collection?
Rarest plush in my collection, so would we be referring to any plush in my collection, samples included, or are we just saying production plush?
Samples included.
Samples included. Well, I guess you'd have a bunch of them tied for first place because a lot of them are one of ones. But I guess if we're gonna rank them in terms of like real rarity, like how hard would it be in theory to acquire if, say, it was for sale on like a secondhand market or something like that, which of course brings the value factor into play. It would have to be something like the Mighty Dragon or the the Sombrero King Pig or the Nerdy Birdie. Really iconic, infamous pieces of merchandise, pieces of Angry Bird plush history at this point. The dragon in particular is just quite the piece because obviously it's a second mighty creature to the mighty eagle, at least a jumbo mighty creature, and it was just done so well right out of the gate. They only made one, obviously, and people. I mean, I know people all across the community when I first revealed it last year. It was fittingly Year of the Dragon, 12 years after the original Year of the Dragon update, but that was quite the plush when I first saw it, and I knew people would be instantly into it. So it's one that I
Yeah.
adore as well. It can't be my favorite because my favorite will always be the construction hat pig, but uh, the construction hat pig has just sentimental value to me since it was a plush I just longed for all the time, and I just like how stupid the plush is. Like, why would you like a pig with a chintzy construction hat? Well, I do, but the dragon objectively is probably the coolest plush and certainly the rarest that I have.
Yeah. How about you explain to the people who don't know what a sample is?
A sample would be something that a merchandise manufacturer would make ahead of the production release in order to get an idea of what they want the product to look like. A sample can there's multiple different prefixes you can add to sample, like pre-production or really early production or production sample. Usually what I have in my collection is a combination of production samples and pre-production samples. So a pre-production sample would be something that looks pretty similar to the release product, though there may be placeholder materials or colors, or maybe they hadn't had the pattern finalized at that point, which you can see with some plushies in my collection. Here and there, you can see it in all sorts of videos like winter plushies, versions of those that had different colorations or slightly different accessories on them. But generally, obviously, these samples are internal. They're for the company. They're not meant to be sold at any point, but just so happens that the right confluence of events came together for me to acquire pretty much every single one, just for preservation purposes, because to me, preserving this merchandise is very important because, I mean, these things are a part of history. Whether people want to look back at Angry Birds nowadays and be like, oh, it was kind of a fad, it was a flash in the pan. To me, this is something very meaningful to my experience in my lifetime. Angry Birds has meant so much to me over the past 15 years that this is something that I feel like I have an obligation to preserve.
Yeah. All right. Do you have like a favorite like Angry Birds moment like throughout the franchise, like events, whatever, no matter how big or small? Like, do you just have a favorite moment?
I think looking back at it, the moment where I really felt like the Angry Birds hype was at its height. I mean, I'm the guy who came up with the Bring Back 2012 hashtag. There was a reason for that because I thought 2012 was kind of the you can say the peak of the franchise where everything kind of coalesced into this perfect storm of events where you had the launch of Angry Birds Tunes at the end of the year, you had Bad Piggies, Space, Star Wars, Friends at the beginning of the year. You had all sorts of promotion. You even had Angry Birds Trilogy, which is my personal entry into the franchise. But really, the moment where I felt like the hype was at its height and where I personally felt most invested into it was around the launch of Angry Birds Space. The way they marketed that was absolutely insane. They had the giant red on the Seattle Space Needle. They sent the little backpack clip to space. That's where they announced the launch of the game. They announced the game from the International Space Station, which was the coolest thing back then. I was infatuated by the whole concept of space, and the game itself was obviously great. It was a great entry into the series for not only being different from what it came before, but it also felt very similar in some ways. So I think they really hit the nail on the head with that. But it was probably around that time, and of course, collecting the merchandise. There was the new plush toys at the time, and they had the Walmart promotion, and you go to Toys R Us and all that. Blah 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 blah. That to me, I don't know if it's hard to pin down another moment for me that I've really been a part of because I really didn't join the community, at least necessarily, until 2018 or so. There's been moments that I've had with the community and all that, but and of course, collecting plush toys for me, things that matter to me personally. But if we're looking back on the franchise as a whole, I think it's kind of around the launch of Angry Birds Space when I really felt like the franchise was at its peak, and that's personally a moment in time that I look back on quite fondly.
Yeah. So how did you get started with Commonwealth and like distributing the samples and stuff?
So that goes back to some initial discussions I had with a former employee. I forget his exact role within the company, but the guy's name was Alec Kessler. I sent him a message. I think it was on LinkedIn or something like that. And he got back to me. I asked him about samples and all that. I it was something that was kind of a myth in the Angry Birds plush community at the time because all these samples we only had a few pictures here and there, stock photos or photos behind the scenes from Toy Fair and all that. Not really supposed to photograph things at Toy Fair, but of course things make their way out. And you had a few people within the community who actually owned samples that were sold by former employees or they found being sold off by the factories in China. So I asked Alec Kessler, do you know anything about any of this stuff? Do you know where any of it might be? Do you have a lead for me in any way? Because he doesn't work for Commonwealth anymore. He didn't at the time either. But he hooked me up with the CEO of Commonwealth Toys, which has been revealed to be a guy named Stephen Greenfield. And Stephen, he's taken me under his wing, basically. Yeah, from the moment I first engaged with him, I knew it was kind of the right partnership, and it was kind of again, it was the right moment, right time. He knew that I was legitimate. He knew that I could do what he's kind of tasked me to do. I had the capacity, I had the knowledge, I had the ability to market all these plush toys that he didn't really want anything to do with anymore. It's not like he doesn't like the stuff. It's just it's it's no good just to have it all sitting around anymore. So we kind of struck a deal where I would make my way to New York every now and then, and I'd take the stuff out of the warehouse and I would put it all on eBay for people to buy it. And of course, Commonwealth gets the majority of the funds from that because it's their stuff after all. But I get a little kickback on every sale that I have. And of course, I get to overlook the plushies that I longed for decades. Well, I say decades, a little over a decade. I mean,
Yeah.
15 years or so, but seeing all these plush toys, and I'm like, oh, like there's the Nerdy Birdie or there's the Sombrero King Pig. I mentioned those two earlier. Those are two infamous and iconic plush toys that originated from ToyWiz.com just as stock photos. Where might those be? But turns out they're just in storage with Commonwealth. They were just sitting in a box, and nothing was really happening with them. And at what point would they just be thrown out, or they didn't really know what to do with this stuff other than just to keep it in storage. So, here I come along and I'm like, well, I'll gladly take this. I'll gladly take all this stuff, but I don't want to just take the stuff and leave you hanging here. I'll help you sell all this stuff. It would get it all into the hands of collectors, people who would actually appreciate the stuff, right? And of course, you guys can make quite a bit of money for the business, and we can go from there. It can just be another revenue stream, and everybody wins.
Yeah, I actually have the question, what is your favorite plush in your collection? But it's crossed out with the note, actually scratch that. We already know it's Construction Hat Pig.
Of course. Speaking of Construction Hat Pig, though, just the other day I acquired a Hong Kong variation of Construction Hat Pig. It's so for the US they released Construction Hat Pig in only 6-inch. It was a limited edition item. They did the same thing for Finland, and later they did it for their own website as a sample. They accidentally sold the soft hat Construction Hat Pig on there, but just the other day I acquired a 5-inch Construction Hat Pig from Hong Kong. It's got a little sound chip in his cheek. It's quite cute. It originally came in a promotional bag. It was sold as a promotional item in Hong Kong with some kind of mobile phone, I think. But uh, of those four construction hat pigs, which one's my favorite? It's still the original one, the one I got back in 2018. That was the oh my god, he's real moment, which has now become a meme for better or worse. But uh, I'm still I'm on the hunt. I'm trying to. It's almost like the Infinity Stones of Construction Hat Pigs. He's gotten to the point. I don't even know if I like the character all that much. It's just it's something that's just kind of happened because it's such an iconic moment and the character means so much to my channel's history. So I've been trying to acquire the Infinity Stones of Construction Hat Pigs. So you have the American release, the Finnish release. There's an Estonian release out there, which is the only one I'm missing. There's the Hong Kong release, and there's the sample that they did in 2016 for the website. And I guess there is also the original sample they did before the uh, before the character actually went into production in 2011. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. In your opinion, what is the best Angry Birds game?
Best Angry Birds game to me is Seasons, just because of all the diversity in the levels. You can pop into a level pack here or a level pack there, and you can get a completely different experience just in terms of the visuals. I think though, I mean, if if I can have a cop out, basically, I would say Angry Birds Trilogy because that technically is classic Seasons and Rio, just with enhanced graphics, and I can play it on a console or on my PC if I wanted to with an emulator. But if I'm just looking at one particular game, it's always been Seasons to me, especially Seasons from 2010 to kind of 2013. Yeah, there's a couple good seasons after 2013. On Thin Ice is a really iconic one, obviously for well obvious reasons. But particularly levels like Abraca Bacon or even like Trick or Treat, Seasons Greetings, and Year of the Dragon, Moon Festival. Those are so iconic. Easter eggs and Summer Picnic. I can go on all day. Those are some of my favorite levels, and the level design in those games are. I mean, that was during the golden era. Nowadays you pop onto an Angry Birds game like Angry Birds Friends, and the levels are a complete maze of just random materials here, random materials there. So, seasons for me.
Yeah, that one's also my favorite game, and like the aspect that I see people bringing up the least, and it's kind of disappointing in opinion, is the soundtrack. Like that's what made
Yes.
the game for me. Like it was just done so masterfully.
Yeah, with every update, they would have a unique soundtrack, and of course, it's not like you have to have that particular version of the game to hear that particular soundtrack that's associated with that update. All you gotta do is hop onto the level pack that you're thinking of, and then you can back out into the main menu, and oh, look at that, the menu's completely changed, the background's changed, and of course, the music changes. And the music, I mean, it's all just kind of basically remixes of the original, but that's what makes it so great, and they're much better done, in my opinion, than the original itself.
Yeah, they did it so like they switched composers to my knowledge like halfway through, and like
Yes, yes.
they did it so well that I didn't even tell until a couple years ago.
Yeah, that's part of the problem that I had with later seasons. I don't think the soundtracks are nearly as iconic. The level designs are worse. The theming is a little bit worse. But really, like I said, from 2010 to 2013, I think they were really on a roll.
Yeah. All right. So besides the plushies, what is your favorite piece of Angry Birds merchandise?
A lot of people, and this is much to my chagrin, will look at things like the Mattel games as just a fantastic line of merchandise. And to some extent, I think I agree. The stuff was really well done. There, you can basically bring the game to life, and there's a lot of different sets you can collect, a lot of different characters you can collect. It's become so collectible these days that these what I refer to them as Mattel kids will spend hundreds of dollars on eBay for plastic figures and pieces, but that's neither here nor there. For me, my favorite piece of merchandise outside of the plushies, I've always been fond of the Connect sets. I think those are really well done. There's a lot of different themes that you can get with those. They did classic and space. They never ventured in Star Wars, unfortunately, or anything like that. But they never did Rio either. Really, outside of the plush toys, for me, there's not enough diversity. Usually they would either cover classic or space because those were really the two biggest games in the history of the franchise, at least during its golden era. Seasons was kind of more niche. Rio was especially more niche. And then you had Star Wars, which they thought would do really well, but according to what I've heard, from I work for I mean the licensee for Angry Birds at the time, Commonwealth, they tell me the plushies they didn't sell nearly as well as as they would have hoped. So, but for me, probably the Connects games. I don't know. I'd have to really give it deep thought as to because there's so many great lines of merchandise out there. The Mashems are really iconic. And you can look at really small individual products. Like I think of like really niche ones, like the Arabia Finland mugs. Those are really cool. There's random bits of one-off merchandise, like racing helmets for Lotus F1. There's a Green Day album out there that comes with a special little comic. I can think of all sorts of things, but that's basically the
Yeah.
gist.
Yeah, like how I was introduced to all these back in the day was my mom would let me get on YouTube and watch like EvanTube or whatever, and then he would
Mm-hmm.
be reviewing all the different ones, and that's how I figured out about it.
EvanTube to me, I don't know if I'd call EvanTube HD my hero. I don't think I ever viewed him as like my favorite YouTuber in the world.
Yeah.
But those videos, I not only are they nostalgic in hindsight, obviously, something in hindsight is always going to be nostalgic, but especially if you enjoyed it. But the presentation of those videos, I mean, obviously the channel was called EvanTube HD. It wasn't like, they were recording with some, low resolution camera, it was kind of just done on a whim. No, no, there was production value to those videos, real production value, and that was super cool to watch as a kid. It felt like something that was almost official, almost like Rovio had a relationship with them. And to some extent, I think they were in cahoots with Rovio, or at least the toy manufacturers. I know Commonwealth would send them free products back then for review. Is that they had the insight they were talking about in one video. I think it was for the Star Wars Wave 2 plushies at the time. It was C3PO, Pilot Luke, Yoda, and Obi-Wan. Evan Tube in the video mentioned that Commonwealth was thinking about introducing an R2D2 later down the road, and it's most likely going to come to retail. So they had inside information on that one, which tells me that they got the plush toys from Commonwealth. But yeah, EvanTube, those videos, just I don't know that to me without those videos, I don't think I'd be into Angry Bird merchandise as much as I am today.
Yeah. Do you think the third Angry Birds movie is going to be a success?
Well, I without saying anything definitive on record here, I've heard some things about the plot because we looked into getting a license for Angry Birds or reacquiring the license for the third movie. I've been trying to push Commonwealth to get the Angry Birds license back so we can try and remake a couple of older toys and actually sell them officially. But nothing's really ever come to fruition with that one. But I've heard a couple of things about the plot since we inquired about it, and it's not something that sounds like I would enjoy. But I think if it's done better than movie two, the second movie to me, it to general audiences, sure, okay, it's probably a better generic kids movie. The first movie to me just really felt more within the universe that was originally conceived and was described in books like the Angry Bird official guide that was released in the UK, or the Hatching a Universe book, which is just a fantastic piece of literature and certainly a piece of merchandise that I think every Angry Bird fan should have and should it not only have but should thoroughly read. Uh, though that universe to me, the first movie really followed that, and the second movie to me just it felt like it was trying to do its own thing too much. Wasn't really related to the games at all. Didn't feel like it was even related remotely to the first movie. And I hope with the third movie they kind of go back to the approach that they did with the first movie. And I think the box office revenue would speak to that. But I think that was probably more of a it had more to do with the fact that the first movie came out not long after the peak of the franchise itself. The second movie was, I mean, that was 10 years after the original game came out. I mean, people were probably looking in 2019 thinking, why are they making a second Angry Birds movie? And at this point in time, the third movie, I mean, why are we doing this? I don't
Yeah.
know if they're going to get this thing into theaters. Is it going to be direct to streaming these days? They don't. Back then it'd be like direct to DVD, but now it'd be direct to streaming. I wonder how they would do that. It's going to be interesting to me exactly the approach they take with this movie, and if if the plot that I heard about is revised in any way. Because if they go with the plot that I've heard, I tell you this, I won't be watching.
Yeah, it like going off of like what like kids like now. I mean, we already saw they're like more willing to go along with that with like the whole like they were all saying baby shark in the bar or whatever it was. Like if they're gonna go off of stuff that kids are into now, I don't see it being anything that I'm willing to watch.
Exactly. If Angry Birds, it's never really felt like it's tried to appeal to what's popular right now. Outside of that second movie, or of course, what they're trying to do with the games nowadays, the Candy Crush bubble shooter game, whatever's going on with the franchise nowadays. I don't keep up with it nearly in the same way I did maybe like 5, 6 years ago. To me, I've the way I enjoy the Angry Birds franchise is I just find the things I like and I just focus on those things. Really, I have total blindness to everything past kind of like 2017 or so. I just kind of live 2016 and and behind that. But to me, this third movie, it needs to go back to being just an Angry Birds movie. Don't try and appeal to, this popular trend. Don't try and appeal to this popular trend. Don't date the movie in that way. Angry Birds has never been, it's never had like real technology in it, despite it being a mobile phone game. It's kind of ironic in that way. You look at the Angry Birds universe itself, there isn't much sign of technology outside of the weird contraptions that the pigs make. It's and they're obviously that's intentionally crude. These characters aren't supposed to be uber intelligent. The society isn't supposed to be advanced. They're not really like that. That's not the ethos of Angry Birds to me.
Yeah. Do you believe we get another golden era of the Angry Birds franchise?
At this point, right now, point in time, I can't see it. The
Yeah.
current management at Rovio, I don't want to clown on them because look, that they're a company, they're a business, they got to make money, and it's what they're doing, and they're doing it well. In fact, they're doing it better than they ever have. If you look at the stats and all, I mean, they're a publicly traded company. They can't just go off and do their own things nowadays. They have investors that they got to appeal to. They got to show that they're bringing in the revenue, and there hasn't been a new Angry Birds game, at least I've seen it, what, in like a year or two or something like that. I don't even know how they're bringing in money these days aside from the revenue streams of Angry Birds 2 and is it Dream Blast that's making all the money nowadays? But apparently Angry Birds 2 and Dream Blast, despite them not being new games, those are still really good revenue streams for them, whether it's the ads or the in-app purchases or what have you. Those games are designed to make money, and they do. So, and the social media presence nowadays, it to me, I would love to see them go back to their roots, go back to what they were doing back in 2012, but that's just not feasible in today's market. It was a different era back then, and again, it was the perfect time for something like Angry Birds to be successful, and it had its day, and maybe hopefully one day it can find its way again with its niche audience that still remains like you and me, and it can be cool again, but it's gonna be a
Yeah, I
long
feel
time,
like a
I
good
think.
first step would be to like differentiate what your movie style is from your game style. Like, I mean, like even like with the Mario movie and like a little bit of what the Sonic movie did, they kind of like changed up the style a little bit to make it known that it's like the movie version. But what Angry Birds is doing is they're just taking their movie style, which is far inferior in my opinion, and then just slapping them all over their games.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I find myself thinking from time to time. It's just with how old the franchise is at this point, being like 15 or and we just celebrated the 15th anniversary last year. The movie designs have been around for longer than the classic designs originally were before the movie. We had the classic designs from '09 to 2016, and then it's been just straight movie since 2016. I mean, there's been a few deviations here and there where we'll use the classic designs here, classic designs there. Now the classic designs are almost they're completely wiped from the portfolio, pretty much. They're never used in any social media material. They're never used in any games. Nowadays you might see some tunes designs here and there. That's what they've been, leaning on to try and appeal to classic fans. And some people get confused with the slingshot story style designs and the tunes designs. Those to me, those are two completely different things. Uh, Slingshot stories does not count as tunes. That's that's some 3D YouTube Kids type crap, which I'm not into it. But and then with everything else, like you said, it's movie this, movie that. We're using the movie designs everywhere, and to me, that's just not the iconic look. I don't think that the general audience, the public cognoscenti, let's call them that, when someone sees an Angry Bird or thinks of an Angry Bird, they're thinking of the original classic designs. They're not thinking of the movie designs. I don't really know who they're trying to appeal to. I don't. It must be this new fan base that they're trying to create, trying to appeal to. I just I don't see the appeal in it at all. I don't see how anyone, even if they were just introduced to the franchise yesterday, I don't see how they could look at the movie design and the classic design and say, "Oh yeah, the movie design is the one you should be using."
Yeah. Are there any more like plush samples or just obscure plush things that we haven't seen yet, or is that classified information?
Well, there's plenty that I can think of. I mentioned the original construction at Pig sample earlier. There's a lot I haven't shown that will be coming to the Commonwealth Collection eventually. And I think a lot of this stuff is, let's just say, it's stuff that people would have never would have thought existed. Because frankly, I mean, there's a lot of this stuff. Look, we've seen some of this stuff on sites like Toy Wiz or in Toy Fair photos. I think people out there are always looking. They were asking me in the Star Wars 2 video, is there a Padme plush out there, or with like Star Wars videos, or basically anything like that. Everyone always asks me, is there a plush of this? Is there a plush of that? Let's just say this: sometime in 2025, as we sit here, there will be a big wave of something. And this wave of something will be the most spectacular thing that the plush community will ever lay their eyes on, at least in my opinion. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. What has been the defining moment of your YouTube career thus far?
Well, we did allude to the oh my god he's real moment. That was back in 2018 for my birthday when I got the construction hat pig. I finally got that plush I long sought after. But to me, that's the moment that I think people look back to and say, oh, that's the most iconic moment. And it comes up every now and again in the videos as a joke, basically. But to me, this past year, I spent the entire summer making the classic set documentary. I literally my whole summer. The way I think back on it now, I was taking this summer course at my university. I was taking Bio 2, and I would go there every day in the morning. There was a lecture day, there was a lab day. I'd go there, do my work there, and I'd come home. I'd sit at my desk. I'd open my computer, and I'd start hacking away basically at this 2-hour documentary, which basically encapsulates my 15 years of data and information that I've acquired. And of course, a lot of it has been fairly recent, getting all these files from Commonwealth and seeing all these sample plushies in person and understanding some of the nuance behind, what does this mean on the tag? What does that mean on the tag? What is this? The store displays are called PDQs. Who would have thought that? But and getting an interview from Steven himself to get on the video. So to me, that video, the production value that went into it, the time and effort that was spent on. I mean, quite literally, it probably took 6 months in pure production time, just from the start of a timeline. If I open up Adobe Premiere Pro, starting from 000 to 2 hours and 10 minutes that it was. And it goes back even further than that because I had the script done for that video probably about a year prior, but it just never I never really got around to actually putting it all together until a year after that. And really, like I said, it was basically the accumulation of knowledge from my entire time collecting these plushies, just knowing what I experienced back in the day and what I've experienced on the aftermarket. Basically, is the era that we're living in, the era where you have to acquire all these things off of eBay and Mercari and Facebook Marketplace. And I've met so many people around the world who have access to different marketplaces, so you got to understand the dynamics of, oh, maybe what's going on in Belgium or what's going on in France, what's going on in Hong Kong, what's going on in Australia. These are all factors that you have to put together because everyone's had a different experience because we don't all live in the same market. The US is probably the biggest market for Angry Birds, maybe outside of Finland. But even then, we probably trump them, pun intended, I guess. But that's that's something that, to me, that video, it's never gonna get more special than that. I don't think I could ever top something quite like that.
Yeah, and you kind of alluded to this before, but what's next? Like, just what's next in general for your YouTube channel, like for Angry Bird, like whatever you're associated with. What's next?
The next step for me in my YouTube career, but what I'm trying to do and what I've been trying to do since probably about 2021, has been to make a video for every single plush set that Commonwealth made, whether it was released, whether it was unreleased. You know, within those videos, you cover all the information associated with the set, where they were released. You know, what do the tags look like? A review of the plushies themselves, which that's kind of obligatory, and of course a little overview of the game that they're associated with or the update they're associated with, blah, 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 blah. I've been trying to crank through all of that and just cover every single set and get to the point where I cover every single plush that they ever made. And, we're not terribly far away from that as we're recording here today. I probably have about 6 to 7 more videos I want to do, depending on how I want to splice things up. But from there, I mean, my time on YouTube, I wanna be done with the plush history, and then from there I just wanna basically do what I want to do, but do it as basically a pastime. I'm getting to the point in my professional career, my actual career that I want to pursue. I'm a bioengineer major at my university. That's what I'm going for. I every day. I'm so busy these days with class. I'm taking 5 courses right now as we speak. There's like a product design course, there's a mechatronics course, there's a signals and systems course, there's a physiology course, and then they're having me do this kind of fake math class right now called Math Foundations. But I've done all the calculuses in the past and all that, and the differential equations, and uh, at this point, I need to get an actual job with an actual salary. Doing this stuff on the side will be fun. Making some revenue here and there from eBay sales. That's what I've been doing. That's what I've been living off. It's not enough where I could actually get my own home and get my own car and all that. I have my own car right now, but you get the car that I really want one day. Bioengineering. It's a field that's got a lot of potential and a lot of room to grow. So that's something that I really want to get into. I've always been a math science guy. I think it comes across in my videos a little bit with some of my analytical analysis every now and then. I don't speak like a peasant in a sense, like a simpleton, like a TikTok. I'm not trying to talk down to people. I talk how I talk in my videos. The scripts are how I speak. So uh, that to me, I want to be over and done with the Angry Bird stuff. I'll still be around. I'll still be making videos. Just may not be as frequent, but I want to cover what my passion is. I want to cover it completely and comprehensively because I don't think if I left everything cut short, I wouldn't be satisfied. Yeah, I've got all the time in the world, and I can make all the time in the world. But at some point, I need to be realistic and get on with my career.
Yeah. And you've been doing this for like how long? Like in your older videos, like maybe middle school, early high school?
Yeah, something like that. It's 2018, so I was probably like sixth, seventh grade or something like that. Yeah, when I think about it, I'm like, I've been doing this stuff for 7 years. There's no way, and eventually it's gonna get to the point where I'm on the platform making videos for 10 years. I mean, that's it's gonna be crazy for me. So, and we're coming up on 10,000 subscribers as well. We're sitting with 9,000 or something like that, 9,000 and change right now. And so that's always been one of my goals is to get to 10K. If I get the 10K, I think I'll be satisfied. But I've always thought my videos deserved more recognition. I put a lot of work into them. They take months to produce. Their production value obviously speaks for itself. But I mean that I'm not searching for views. I'm not searching for subscribers. I've never said in one of my videos, at least since like 2021 or something like that. When I was more of an amateur, I'd say it. But like and subscribe. I don't. I've made it a conscious effort not to say those things. Just the video speaks for itself. If you like the content, if you're into what I'm into, those things will come naturally. But I'm not out here searching for, 100,000 views, 1 million views. I'm not making clickbait titles. I'm not making clickbait thumbnails. I'm genuine. That's just what it is. I like my stuff professional. I like it straight to the point, and I like it detailed. So that's how I
Yeah.
roll.
So now I've just got to like speed round to like maybe like six just for fun questions. A little bit more
For
than
sure.
six, but
This should be fun.
yeah. All right, Coke, Pepsi, or Dr. Pepper?
Uh, Dr. Pepper, I would say, just for
Yeah.
the branding purposes.
Yeah. What's your favorite TV show?
Looking back on it, I don't know. Does live sports count? I'm a big NFL guy. I think if a TV show, television program, if we're not talking live sports, it's probably a show called Top Gear. I'm a huge car enthusiast, and that one really spoke to me during the Jeremy Clarkson and James May and Richard Hammond era. For all of my UK buffs out there,
What's your favorite video game besides Angry Birds?
I would say it's definitely some Need for Speed game. Again, I'm a big car guy, and that's basically all I play in my free time is car racing games. So Need for Speed for sure.
Yeah. Do you have any pets? If not, what pet would you like to own someday, if at all?
I have two pets. I have a dog and a cat. My dog is a cockapoo, and my cat is just your normal house cat. Uh, Dog's name is Moss, and my cat's name is Grayson.
All right. PlayStation, Xbox, or Nintendo?
Yeah, the old console wars. I would say I'm a PlayStation guy at this moment in time. Own a PS4 and a PS5. The PS4 I, I kind of got just for the sole purpose of jailbreaking it. My favorite console of all time though is the Xbox 360, so I go back and forth. My first one was just the original Wii. I had a ton of fun on that one as a kid, and I had the DS Lite at the time as well. So I have no brand loyalty when it comes to consoles. I'd always like to get into the PC world myself, but I don't have the money for that one.
Yeah, I've always been a Nintendo guy, which kind of sucks from an Angry Birds perspective because I've heard that most of the games, like the Angry Birds trilogy ports, like are far inferior.
Yes, uh-huh.
Especially like I only own the 3DS one, and that one didn't get any DLC or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, to me, Trilogy, it's the best Angry Birds game, but it has to be the enhanced version either for the 360 or for the PS3. But nowadays, I mean, really, I don't even think you need that high of specs in your PC to be able to run the RPCS3 version. You could run that at like 720p, 30 frames. I and you could probably get away with doing something like that, but and then that way you still get the enhanced graphics and all that. I've dabbled with the Wii version in the past, but that one you got to use the remote to actually control your bird and actually drag it on the
Seems
screen.
so janky.
Yeah, I've heard the Wii U version is really good with the touchpad, but I've never played that one myself, so I can't really speak to it. I don't mind the controls, like on a controller, pulling back with a joystick for the Xbox 360 or the PS3 version. To me, that feels really intuitive, but then again, I have a lot of hours put into that one, and you gotta have the DLC with those two, which the DLC for the enhanced versions on the consoles, you can't get that anymore. It doesn't come packed in with like the Wii version or the Wii U version. So that's how that is.
Favorite board/card game?
Uh, Board. I'd say I'm a Monopoly guy. I'll play Monopoly to the end.
All right. Do you have any hobbies besides plush collecting?
Well, I certainly collect other things outside of plushies. I collect Buzz Lightyear action figures. I'm kind of I'm a Toy Story merchandise nut as well. To some extent, more of like a vintage Toy Story merchandise type of guy. I collect banana stickers. I love my Chiquita bananas. That's very specific. It has to be a Chiquita banana because then you don't get the cool sticker. Love what they do with the marketing for those. And generally, I like going outside, playing with buddies, with like actual like tackle football, or like two hand touch or something like that. That's kind of fun in the pastime. Playing Need for Speed games, or frankly, my free time at this point is it's either focusing on the Angry Bird stuff or doing schoolwork, which I guess that's not free time. So that's basically my life at this point.
Favorite fast food restaurant?
See, at this point, I don't even go to those places. I couldn't tell you the last time I was at a fast food restaurant. As a kid, it was probably McDonald's, just because I probably thought their Happy Meal stuff was better than like what do they have at like Burger King, like the King meal or whatever the kids meal is at like Wendy's or something like that. I never really took a liking to any of the food though, so even then I'm a vegetarian. I don't roll with those types of places. I'll just say that.
Right. Favorite movie?
Oh, favorite movie. I don't know. Like I said, I'm a car guy. I like me some of those some car movies. I'm not never really been into like the Fast and Furious movies. Those are a bit too yeah out of this world. To say it lightly. But I've always been big into like they did a Need for Speed movie back in 2014. I love that one. They did a Gran Turismo movie, and pretty recently I thought that one was really good. I mentioned earlier I like Toy Story. The Toy Story original trilogy for me, that's just absolute gold. Like the SpongeBob movie, the original SpongeBob movie from the year I was born, 2004. It's a great one, absolute classic. So those are just a couple of my personal favorite movies.
Yeah. Last question. Are you an animation or a live action kind of guy?
Oof. It depends on the animation type. I'm not really a 3D animation type of guy. I like my traditional, hand drawn type stuff. To me, though, it's really impressive to see something come to life through stop motion. I mean, but one of my favorite movies to watch from a visual perspective is like the Lego Movie and the way they kind of made that look like it was stop motion. I've always admired people on like even just like YouTube itself doing stop motions, like using like clay models or like, even in the case of like Lego or like action figures or something like that. There's so much you can do with like a physical prop, but at the same time, there's so many limitations. So and that you have to work around. You have to be creative. I think it brings out the most creativity from its creator.
Yeah. The Lego Movie in particular, like they did that so well. If you would have asked me in like fifth grade, I would have like died on a hill trying to defend that it was actual in like stop motion animation. Like it was that good.
For sure, that movie's gonna stand the test of time too. Is especially that original Lego movie they did in 14. I thought the plot was really fun, and of course the animation, even to this day, it's pretty breathtaking.
Yeah. All right. So I don't know if like you guys listening to this heard that sound, but that was me sharing my screen so that Maximus could see. But I have an Angry Birds Jeopardy. This is not an ordinary Jeopardy. These questions will range from extremely easy to extremely hard, and some of them are flat out trick or troll questions.
All right, let's see what we got here. This is gonna be. I don't think I've done a Jeopardy. I mean, I've done a Jeopardy here and there in like a math class I've taken or something like that. We've done this as like, oh, a 200-point question. This is kind of an easier problem, or 500-point question is a more difficult problem. But let's see how this goes. Never done it with Angry Birds before.
All right. So the categories that we have: games, birds, plushies, Commonwealth, or just miscellaneous. I did test a couple of these questions. I don't know if they'll open again though. Hopefully they will, but I'll add the points accordingly. So you can choose just whichever one you want right now.
Okay. Well, I like going. I like going balls to the wall here. We'll start with 500 plushies.
All right. This plush was infamous for a long time for its existence being known but never seen.
Oof, but well, this could apply to the witch blue. I mean that would have to be it, right?
Sorry, I was trying to reset the points. He said
That
which
sounds good.
blue. Yeah, and I also have just like this really weird Angry Birds thing on my computer for some. I don't know. Anyways, he said which blue, and yeah, that's correct.
Yeah,
So you got 500
I
points.
should probably answer the questions with what is. I'll start doing
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So, all right. Uh, should we just go with the ones that were already like done, just so that we don't mistake them for ones that weren't?
Okay, that sounds
All
good.
right.
We can go with
So
500 Commonwealth.
sure. Every flush in the classic wave one set.
Red, the Blues, Chuck, Bomb, Matilda, Minion Pig, Helmet Pig, Mustache Pig, King Pig. That is technically it for Classic Wave 1, though there are variations to all of them, like Spot Bomb and Red and all that. I should say, what is Red, the Blues, Chuck, Bomb, Matilda, Minion Pig, Helmet Pig, Mustache Pig, King Pig?
Yeah. So for the blues, I listed their real names. I'll still count it. Like that counts.
Alright.
But
Being stingy there
yeah,
with that one.
Yeah. um, but you got that one right. So you can do miscellaneous 500, games for 100 or 300.
Do miscellaneous 500. Knock out 500s.
The best game in the. Okay, this was kind of a troll question.
Well, okay, so knowing previous knowledge here about our little conversation here, this is going to be seasons, I would hope.
What is not
Not,
Angry Birds
not
Pop?
Angry Birds Pop. Oh my gosh.
All right. So you got games for 100 to 300, just so that we
We'll
don't
go
mistake.
games 100.
All right. The most iconic game Rovio has ever made. It's also the first of its kind.
Well, that'd be Angry Birds Classic. What is Angry Birds Classic? Yeah,
Yep.
there you go.
All right. So that leaves one more. So it's games for games 300. The game released on consoles.
What is Angry Birds Trilogy and Angry Birds Star Wars?
Oh, I forgot about Angry Birds Star Wars for a second. I
Yeah,
just listed
yeah.
Angry Birds Trilogy.
Star Wars, unfortunately for console, isn't even distinct in any way. It's basically just a port of the mobile version, just with 1080p and all that. And it does have a multiplayer mode, which is kind of cool, but unfortunately, it's not quite as good as Trilogy was.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So now you can just choose whichever one.
All right, let's knock out more of the 500 categories. Let's go games 500.
True or false? Rovio made some horror games before Angry Birds.
What is true?
Oh, I just put true. Sorry, I clicked the wrong button. I'll count that.
We'll go
So,
birds 500.
oh, this one is a good one. This bird, modeled after a U.S. president, was posted on one of the official Angry Birds social media accounts.
Oh gosh, this has to. What is the Obama bird?
I was not expecting you to get that one right. Not gonna lie.
I'm into the weeds of some of the Angry Bird meme culture a little bit. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. All right.
Let's go with we'll knock out the 400 ones now. I'll work my way back up. I'm not all too creative with this. We'll go with games 400.
Angry Birds is heavily inspired by this other mobile game.
What is Crush the Castle?
All right, that's
Oh yeah.
correct. All right.
We'll go birds 400.
All right. The Blues' real names.
Be Jay, Jake, and Jim.
All
So I
right, you
know
got
there
that
is
one.
some contention with some of those names. I forget what someone out there calling him like Jack or something like that. I know officially they're only Jay, Jake, and Jim, but
Yeah.
all right. Let's mix things up a little bit. Let's go with Commonwealth for 200.
All right. Commonwealth has this symbol on the back of all their tags.
What is the MHB heart?
I just said hard to be basic, but you got that one right too.
All right. Let's go with miscellaneous 300.
All right. This historical event is why the enemies in Angry Birds are pigs.
What is the swine flu?
Yes. Yeah, that's correct.
There's still some contention out there whether that was or wasn't the case, but I'll accept the answer.
All right.
All right. Let's see. We'll go with plushies for 100.
All right. The first ever Angry Birds plushies to be made by Commonwealth.
I guess there's quite a few different answers you could say for this one, but this would be a
Just
red or
keeping
a,
it very general, like very, very general.
well, I mean, this would be what is the classic set plushies?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't going for just a single, whatever.
All right, gotcha. Let's go with miscellaneous 400.
All right. True or false? Bomb is the only bird featuring explosions.
What is false? Icebird is also known as the ice bomb bird.
Oh. Yeah, I put the reason as Matilda's eggs acting as grenades, but that works too.
Yeah, I always think about that 'cause in the original versions of Space. I think there was that huge, what did they call it, the Terra leak out there last year or something like that. We got all those internal Angry Birds space files and all that, those beta builds. And the Icebird in those versions was called the Ice Bomb Bird. That's what I think of. But yeah, Matilda works too. All right, let's go with plushies for 300.
This plush has become incredibly rare and expensive due to due to what YouTuber favoring it. You get double points if you can name the plush and the YouTuber.
Oh, it was that. What is the purple bird? I see that's my one blind spot in the history of Angry Bird plush. I don't know if I really watched any of the plush tubers back then, but I know it's the purple bird.
Well, I was just thinking of all time, so I put the construction hat pig and
Oh
who
my
is
gosh.
Maximus Overdrive.
If I gotten to this point where I'm now an infamous YouTuber, it's this infamous you know, you get the
Yeah.
point. I'm in this category now. Great. All right, let's go with birds for 100.
All right. He's the main member of the flock who is named after the color of his feathers.
What is red?
All right.
There we go. All right, let's go Commonwealth for 400.
All right. Commonwealth is still making plushies for this mobile game that is not Angry Birds.
What is My Singing Monsters?
That's correct.
Now, technically, they this is quite topical actually. They have just lost the license for My Singing Monsters. So this question
Oh.
in right now, as of today, this is no longer applicable. They're
Oh,
actually
that is
being
really bad
yeah,
timing.
they are being actively kicked off of Amazon right now by whatever whoever the company is that makes the My Singing Monsters. What is it? Big Blue Bubble or
Yeah.
something like that.
I
Um,
did notice that because I wanted to make sure this was still like an actual thing, like that it was correct still, but that's really bad timing if that's like as of today.
it's like I'm not entirely sure the license has expired as of today, but it either just expired like a couple of weeks ago or it's going to at the end of this year. It's one of those two. But I know as of right now, there's no more plans of making My Singing Monsters plush, which sucks. But they've only been making those four anyways, the four they sell on Amazon. So
Yeah. All right. So, yeah.
let's go with plushies for 400.
All right. The letter and number on the back of a Commonwealth plush indicate these.
What is the date code?
I'll accept that.
Eh,
I just put the month in date, so
yeah.
yeah, same thing.
All right. Let's go with miscellaneous for 200.
All right. Angry Birds, but in space.
Angry Bird. Well, what is Angry Bird Space and Angry Bird Star Wars? Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I'm not sure how to do this because you answered both.
So, well, yeah, just get. Well, I guess you can give me the points. Yeah, that works. I mean, I said Star Wars. I could also say Star Wars too, if I'm really being specific about it. And Angry Birds seasons. Aha.
All right.
There was the summer picnic levels, if you recall. That there was the golden egg and what was it, level 17 or something like that, where what was it, the moon landing? I think it was. But
All right, I'll count it just this once.
just this once. There is only once, unless we do it again, which might be fun. All right. Let's go with birds for 300.
The Redbird's name.
Red. What is red?
Who
Terrence.
is Terrence? You only get points for Terrence.
Damn. Okay. Well, I guess you did say only one time, so. All right. Let's go with Commonwealth for 300.
All right. The year that Commonwealth was founded.
What is 1934?
That is correct.
You're lucky it wasn't 1984 for people who know. Okay. Let's see. We'll go with plushies for 200.
All right. This term is given to a plush not yet approved by the company but has been made physically.
What is a sample?
Yes, that is
Literal
correct.
sample. People back then would call them prototypes, which is still correct. It's just sample is a little bit more specific, and that's what the actual toy companies call them, as we now know.
Yeah. All right.
Let's go with games for 200.
The spin-off game in the series featuring the villains.
What is Bad Piggies? You're probably gonna give me. I was gonna say, are you gonna give me extra points if I say Angry Birds Star Wars 2? Technically, that
No,
also works
just
as
bad
well.
piggies.
Just bad piggies. All right. 'Cause I guess it did say spin-off game. Okay, well, let's go with birds for 200.
All right. Young birds are called this phrase in the Angry Birds series.
What is hatchlings? Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, that's correct.
I guess I don't know what else you would call them. It's always a contention with me between call. I know the reference to an anniversary or a birthday. You can either call it a hatch day or a bird day. They refer to it as both. Wonder if you could do something similar with hatchlings, but whatever. I go on tangents. Let's go with miscellaneous for 400. For 100, should I say?
Yeah. The enemies in Angry Birds.
Who are the bad piggies? Yeah,
I just call them pigs. It's the same thing.
Yepper.
All right, and the last one,
Commonwealth.
Commonwealth for 100. All right, Commonwealth was the first company to be given the license to produce toys for this major IP.
Wow, big shocker. This would be what is Angry Birds? I guess you could say this for pretty much any franchise that they had. You could also say for Doodle Jump
Yeah,
or or even like Cut the Rope or anything like that. They even had the Plants vs Zombies. Uh at least we're vying for it at one point. We've sold off 2 of those
yeah.
samples. Hopefully find more one day. But
All
they had
right.
their hands in all the little mobile games at the times. That's why they labeled all those toys as app toys back then. You see the little app toys logo on all
Yeah.
the packaging, so that's what they
All
specialized
right.
in. All right, that was a lot of fun.
Well, yeah. I think that concludes it. Yeah. So if you're listening, yeah, go check out the other episodes. I'll leave Maximus Overdrive's YouTube channel in the description. If you go to his like more thing, it'll take you to all his other contacts. I'll leave his stuff. You can go watch his videos. I'll also leave the podcast channel in the description. And well, see ya.